truth bleeds through the static. This is 12 gauge, Dan.
The night falls on the table, red light glowing slow. Another case unsolved, yeah, we dig below. The tape rolls tight, whispers at the mic. Every fact a fight, truth's a loaded strike. City by city, we chase what they hide. Every name in the margins, someone like cold eyes in the photos. Counts in the grain, 12 gauge, done breaking through the pain. We go deeper, follow the sound. Turn the volume up, the truth's going down. Every voice, every clue, every motive, the bait. Until the 12 gauge endure. Gauge endure. Gauge endure. Late night calls and static screams, cross down names in the killer's dreams. Truth in the shadows, lies in the skies, we paint the scene where justice cries. Got tape, got files, got a mic and a name, not chasing fame, just exposing the game. From the court to the corner, we narrate the pain with a system.
Yeah, man. Happy Friday night to you, everybody. My name is 12 Gauge. This is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. You know, tonight I want to talk about some things that I'm not quite sure how the show is going to go, because some of the best shows are usually those that you don't plan on anything, you just kind of let them flow. And tonight's going to be one of those nights. I'm just going to let it flow. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
On location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
In plain sight. But 12 gauge brings it to light. Open case, the story fades to black. Cold wind through the courthouse, the evidence stacked. Mysterious whispers, facts twisting the rain. Trials and tears, fingerprints and pain. 12 gauge, the truth on the line. Unsolved hearts, and the edge of time. Through the light, we illuminate the signs. Justice speaks when the silence binds. Headlights flash on the long forgotten road. Photographs of faces, stories left untold. DNA and alibis, the gavel falls again. Every clue a heartbeat, every word a sin. Facts and fiction dance in disguise, but we're chasing the proof where the cold truth lies. From the old case files to the breaking news, we follow every lead till the trail bleeds through. 12 gauge, H still on the grind. Mystery meets the mastermind.
Come on in, let's get ready to do this. My name is 12 Gauge.
All right. You know, this is Texas OU weekend for those of us in Texas that are the Longhorn fans. As myself, this is a big weekend for football here and probably around the country. You know, there's a lot of rivalry games and there's a lot of games going on. And it's always good to start off the weekend, the long weekend, with some good football. Of course, there's NFL stuff going on as well. But sometimes people are just not football people and they seem to enjoy other things, which is not a bad thing either. Common sense, how you doing? Just you and I for now, until some other people get the notifications or they realize that I'm live. You know, this has been a hell of a week. As you all know, I've advanced into a different position, and you know, it's been rocking my world, so to speak. So But everything's great. Everything's great. Everything is great. And I don't know why I'm repeating myself, but it happens. Like I said the other night, I made some QR codes. This one right here, which I'm gonna put at the beginning of the show, is my Cash App, and this one is for the American Heart Association. I'm gonna make one for St. Jude because I believe in that as well. Um, and once again, you don't have to feel obligated to donate, but if you feel the need and you do have a Cash App account, you want to send little coffee money or whatever, feel free. If not, no big deal. Don't sweat it. But toward the end of the show, I'm going to put the American Heart Association one up there. It's a great cause. So that is that. I am going to talk about some Idaho stuff tonight, and I'm gonna talk about some other things. Because there's been a lot going on in the true crime world. I just haven't been a part of it. I've been kind of doing my own thing. One of the things that I want y'all to know that I'm going to talk about how to make St. Jude's link for donation code. One of the things that I'm going to talk about is um, some of the things that are going around that I've had a member on my panel. She's been up here multitude of time. She's had inputs on my channel. We've shared lives together. We've done a lot of things. And there's been some issues that have been brought up about this person. And as you know, in the YouTube world, if you're linked to somebody or somebody comes up on your panel or somebody likes your show or is a mod or, whatever, all of a sudden people tie you together, which I don't understand that. But this person obviously has upset some people that are also on my platform. I mean, not platform, but like on my sub list, and they have their situation going on. I'm going to tell you one thing as a creator. This is my show and this is my channel, and other people's drama with their stuff, that is their own. So if you unsub me because I've had this person on my panel, or you unsub me because you don't like her, or you have issues with her, or if you feel that she's wronged you in any way, well, don't watch when she's on here. She's welcome in my chat. She hasn't done anything to the channel or to myself. Otherwise, she would not be here. And I think y'all know who I'm talking about, so I don't need to put her name out there. Um, I don't even want to comment on her situation because it's not my situation to comment. All I know is I've had some people come to me about this situation and how I'm going to deal with it. And am I going to, be kicking this person off the mod list and stuff like that? Until this person does something to the channel or myself, people are adults and they're free to deal with their issues as adults. I am not the universal moderator for adults. And while I'm on that kind of rant, I want to also say that, you know what, I am not the moderator of YouTube, but there are some things that I continue to see that are just unacceptable. But you know what? From this day forth, I'm not going to waste any more time on it because that's what usually happens whenever there's nothing to go on regarding a case. Um, you start picking at each other, and and you create drama, and whatever it is for other people, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to comment on other channels. I could give a care less about what they do, what they say, what they're about, because I didn't start my channel for that. I didn't start my channel to be a crime channel. I didn't start my channel to be about drama. I didn't start my channel to go after people. Just people felt it in their heart that they needed to come after me because certain guests or certain people visit my channel, so they tie everybody together. Well, I can tell you tonight that I'm not linked to anybody but 12 gauge, and that's it. So if you feel you need to unsub because I've been associated with certain people in the past or whatever you view um is happening, you're more than free to do so. You will be missed, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, what you feel is right. And you're always welcome back to the channel, you know, because that's what the channel's about. It's about unity and about true crime, and that's all the channel's about. Not about drama. It's not about he said, she said, and I've done that in the past, so I'm guilty of that, and I hate that. I've hate that. I've been a part of that in the past, but I won't. I won't entertain that anymore. Hopefully, from here on out. I mean, so that's my rant on that. So tonight, I want to talk about a lot of different things because I want to take some time to really do it. Um, First of all, I want to talk about some state crime that's going on. There might be a serial killer in the Houston area, and it's something that needs to be addressed because many people don't get the actual facts when they watch true crime. It's not about factual information, it's about other things. But I want to make sure that I put the best show out there for people, and that's all on my show is about. So let's get on with the show. This is from Sidebar. Kind of like this dude says, "Hi, my name is Jesse Weber." No, that's Law and Crime, right? Yeah, that's this channel. He's like, "This is Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber," or whatever he says. Well, let's get on with this show. Let's see what Houston's doing.
Edge again, another body has been pulled from one of the city's bayous, sparking new fears online of a so-called bayou killer. Police say there is no serial offender at large, but with social media buzzing and multiple deaths this year, questions are just mounting. We're going to get to the bottom of what is happening in Houston's waterways with a former FBI and CIA agent. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. And this is another Law and Crime legal alert. There are allegations claiming that online apps like DraftKings, ESPN Bet, BetMGM, Bet365, Fanatics Sportsbook, Caesars Sportsbook, the chilling question that we faced the last time this story made headlines. Is there a serial killer in Houston? Social media is buzzing again after yet another body was discovered in a local waterway this week. Police maintain there is no evidence of a serial killer on the loose, but speculation online, it shows no sign of slowing. And can you blame them? Some have already dubbed the mysterious figure the Bayou Killer. Honestly, it reads like the opening scene of a true crime documentary, but I will tell you, for Houston residents, it's a frightening reality. Maybe not of a serial killer per se, but it's a scary thought about what may be happening here. Just when the rumors seem to be quieting down a little bit, what happens? Another body turns up. This is reignited fear and speculation across.
And if you followed any of these issues here in Texas, you do understand that on Rainy Street in Austin, there was for a while, they were pulling bodies out of the Lady Bird Lake for a long time, one right after the other. So there was actual rumors that there was a serial killer going from Houston to Austin and even up to Chicago area. They were kind of hitting the big cities in a triad almost to um, to prey on on people. The rumor that was out there for the Ladybird killings that I uncovered from doing that case is there was supposedly an Uber driver driven by certain people that would be looking for drunken individuals looking for an Uber. They would pick them up, they would rob them or drug them with, water. They would offer them water or something of the sort. The drugs would start to kick in. The person would black out. They'd wake up and they'd have no money, no credit card, no net. They've been robbed. And they would wake up in an area where they didn't know where they were. So think about that a little bit. I don't know if this is the same kind of crime, but there was rumor that these people were hitting up Houston as well as Austin. So I don't know if this is the same type of situation. Let's see.
This city. That's right. This week, for at least the 16th time this year, and just weeks after a cluster of discoveries sparked a citywide panic, Houston police pulled another body from the waters of White Oak Bayou. This is a chilling development that has everyone asking the same question all over again. What is happening? What is really happening in Houston? What is happening in these bayous? Now, here's a situation that set the internet on fire, okay? In less than 2 weeks last month, 6 bodies were pulled from different bayous around Houston. The timeline was very tight. The numbers really alarming, that it was almost impossible not to try to connect the dots here. Social media did just that. There were viral TikToks and Instagram posts speculating about a serial killer on the loose. But from day one, city leaders and police, they've been adamant that there is no evidence of a serial killer. But I want to rewind. I want to break down exactly how we got here to try to make sense. It all started in mid-September when the first body was found on the morning of September 15th in Brays Bayou. She was identified as 21-year-old Jade McKissick, a University of Houston student who had gone missing after leaving a Midtown bar.
So think about this a little bit. So I don't know the details on this one. You're hearing it the first time, just like myself. But if you're a college student and you're anywhere in the vicinity of downtown, or I don't know how Houston rolls, but like Austin, there's Rainy Street, there's 6th Street. There are these two streets that coincide with a lot of things. There's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of partying, there's, food trucks, there's all kinds of bars, all kinds of this. I don't know how Houston rolls, but if Houston rolls like Austin, San Antonio area, then, there's a chance that this young lady could have been out hanging with her friends and got caught up with the wrong person.
Now, investigators said preliminarily there were no signs of foul play, but then just hours later that same day, another body was recovered from Greens Bayou. He was identified as 43-year-old Rodney Ricardo Chapman. The very next day, September 16th, a third person, 24-year-old Seth Joseph Hansen, was found in White Oak Bayou. 2 days after that, on September 18th, a fourth body was discovered in Buffalo Bayou. He was 63.
So you tell me that these bodies that are being found in this bayou, it just happened to be coincidental that one right after the other? It just seems like this person is just picking them off. It doesn't matter who it is, their demographic, their age, because as we've already seen, they could be male, female, older, younger. It doesn't matter to this individual. And that's a scary thing whenever you have somebody that's killing people like this. It reminds me of the Richard Ramirez case because Richard, the Night Stalker, didn't really discriminate. It was a hard case to solve because of that. Because most people have MOs, which is a method of operandi, in which they have a particular method in which they're killing these individuals. So this person is picking off different age ranges, which makes it a little different than just the average person. Like in Austin, you have an individual that is targeting a particular type of male, a particular type of look, in a particular type of area. Well, these bayous, obviously, they're either being taken there or they're being taken from another area and dumped there. As we know in true crime, the crime doesn't always have to happen right where it ends up.
Year-old Arnulfo Alvarado. And then on September 20th, a fifth body was pulled from Buffalo Bayou. That victim was 66-year-old Michael Andrea Rice. The sixth body found on September 26th in Buffalo Bayou downtown, initially unidentified, and at the time the medical examiner asked for the public's help in identifying her, describing her as a black woman under 30 years old, about 5'3", 120 pounds, short black hair, widow's peak. She was found wearing a black and beautiful t-shirt and jeans, had a distinctive 888 tattoo on her wrist. According to the Houston Chronicle, this body has now been identified as Michaela Miller, though her age remains unknown at this point. So 5 bodies, 5 days, and a sixth just days later.
Okay, five bodies in 5 days. It's a body a day. Come on, man. You can't tell me that's not somebody who is deliberately picking off these people. The police say there's no inkling of something to be worried about. It's just happening out of the blue. It's almost like these people are just boom, dropping dead and falling in the bayou, right? I don't believe that whatsoever. What do you believe, chat? Is there anybody in the chat?
So obviously, it was reported that the city was buzzing with both fear and speculation. And what happened in response? Mayor John Whitmire and Police Chief No Diaz held a press conference to address the rumors head on. That was back on September 23rd.
We do not have any evidence that there is a serial killer loose in Houston, Texas. Let me say that again. There is no evidence that there's a serial killer.
Okay, so what evidence do you need in order to have a perceived serial killer? I mean, all of a sudden you have these bodies turning up one right after the other, but there's no evidence, according to this gentleman, that there's not a serial killer. What evidence do you need in order to coincide that thought pattern? What did this guy need to be shown to him? What's the method of their death? Are they being strangled? Are they being shot, being stabbed? Jesse's not saying any of that. He's just saying that they're being found. So what is the method of their being deceased? How are they dying? What is it?
Killer loose on the streets of Houston. If there was, you would hear it from me first.
He called the social media speculation false and frustrating. Chief Diaz and Homicide Captain Salam Zia then walked through the facts. Their dive team had recovered the bodies, but they doubled down on the mayor's claims that these cases are not connected.
There's no evidence, and I repeat, no evidence to suggest that any of these incidents are connected.
Okay, then how do you connect them if they're found in the same type bayous? They're connected in that aspect, right? You're saying there's no connection, like they didn't know each other? We get that. I get that. But the fact that they're found in the same bayou, there is a pattern there, obviously being developed.
All of the 5 incidents, the medical examiner's office will determine the cause of death. The investigation into these incidents is pending the determination of the ME's office. For us as an agency, rumors stir fear and anxiety in our communities.
Okay.
It's important to rely on verified information and investigations.
And Captain Zia emphasized that their job was to follow the science and the evidence and not social media theories. So to help us understand the psychology behind this panic, we actually spoke with criminologist Dr. Debbie Goodman on a previous episode of Sidebar, and she explained why these theories spread so quickly.
First and foremost, the topic in and of itself of murder is so mysterious to people,
Right.
right? As we know, it becomes very intriguing, very fascinating. So as soon as somebody thinks that there's any category of murder, whether a double homicide, quadruple, serial murder, mass murder, family-based, school-based, workplace-based, it really captures the attention. Now, in terms of the investigators themselves, they're really looking for fact patterns. First, they need to identify who are these victims. Is there any commonality? Are they of a similar demographic, right? So we would start there. And then the victimology is so important because we also want to look at the fact patterns. When we say fact patterns, when it comes to investigations, we're really just talking about the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. So we always start there with any type of murder case, but this whole idea of fascination and people really gravitating toward this type of case where we have bodies in a river and immediately people think, well, clearly it's got to be serial murder.
So did you hear what she said? I'm sorry, I'm having like lighting issues over here. um yeah, maybe they should be scared. I agree with you. I agree with you. This lady is on to something. The who, why, or who, what, when, and where. And if you've ever listened to anybody investigating a crime, those are the things that need to be addressed. Who, what, when, and where, and how. Once again, for the people in the back, who, what, when, where, and how. There's no why, because the why doesn't matter, because that would explain motive. There doesn't have to be a motive in order for you to understand a crime. So there's a lot of individuals that really don't understand that concept, that you have to have a motive in order for a crime to be understood. You don't need a why. You don't. Who, what, when, where, and how. And she's on to something right there. And people are fascinated. They're fascinated by murder because, like she said, it's very mysterious.
But Jesse, part of what I do is I look at data analytics as a criminologist, and serial murders in our modern day society is really not as common as, let's say, decades ago. So the real concern today is actually mass murders. Social media really drives people's perspective. Now, is it fact or is it fiction? That's really up to the individual to determine. But again, because we know that any category of murder is so fascinating that people in 60 seconds or less will.
Like she said, is it fact or is it fiction? And that's a big statement. I mean, you might not agree with experts on their opinion. I believe it's their opinion, it's actually their expertise, but their expertise, a lot of people do not agree with that because of the simple fact that they don't understand how this could be what it is. Like the chief was saying, there's no connection to these people. Well, let's talk about connection. Let's talk about what a connection to a person could be. What could that be, actually? If you're going to talk about a connection to these bodies being found in the bayou, what would connect? Good grief. 12? My Lanta. I hope you are laughing right now because I'm having a heck of a time with this lighting. What could be the connection between these individuals that are found in these bayous, in these bodies of water? One of the connections would be what? They're all found in a body of water. So if you're looking at the investigative tactics regarding these individuals, they're all found in the same area, which would be the body of water, right? So that would be a connection. Even though they don't know each other through, this 63-year-old did not know this 21-year-old, this one didn't know this one. Okay, What would be another connection? What's the ethnicity of these individuals? So is the ethnicity the same? Are they all one race? Are they all, do they have similarities in their hair? Um, could they be being killed for organ donation, organ trafficking, anything like that? So when you're looking at demographics in the investigative process, these are some things that are very important. Once again, who, what, when, where, and how. Those are the questions that need to be answered when you're investigating something. There is no why, because a lot of times you don't get that why unless the killer themselves gives you that why. And that frustrates the true crime community because they're unable to get that method of operandi, which is, why did this happen? Why did this person get killed and this person get killed and this person get killed? As we just heard, five people in 1 week.
Read the post, see the headline, listen to, a blog, a podcast, and make a determination. Now they're looking for how many likes, how many reposts, and all of a sudden, in a 60-second window.
One thing that I can tell you for ladies and young people, if you're watching this, hey Aquarius, thank you for being here. For people that are watching this, and if you have young children or anybody that's just probably a young adult, we really need to be careful when we're posting on social media, especially on apps that are able to identify where you're at. Because think about this. Here's another MO for a killer. Let's say that they're just scrolling through social media and they find this girl right here posting this picture. And she, underneath it, she shows exactly where she's at, what she's doing. And if you're looking for prey, don't you think she would be a viable option? Who, what, when, where? The only question that's left unanswered is, how did it happen? How did it happen? So think about that a minute.
A decision has been made.
Now, she urged caution, trusting the investigators to do their work, noted that in the modern age with surveillance and technology, it is incredibly difficult for a serial offender to operate without leaving a digital trail. So with the official word from the city essentially being this is tragic but unconnected, this is when the story began to kind of fade from the headlines. But the bayous have spoken again. This past Wednesday, on October 8th, the pattern repeated. Just after 8 a.m., callers reported a body in White Oak Bayou. Houston police, their dive team, they respond.
Okay, so we got White Oak Bayou, we have Buffalo Bayou, we have another bayou. So there's 3 bayous. There's 7 bodies that he's already spoke of. 7 bodies in 2 weeks. That's a lot of people being found in these bayous. So if let's like I said, I'm naive to Houston culture because I have never really been downtown or by the bayous. I understand that whenever there's hurricanes, that the rain from the hurricanes usually flood these bayous and it floods downtown. So it must be very, very prevalent toward the downtown area where that water just kind of runs over the I-45 and I-10 and all that. So, like I said, I'm very naive when it comes to Houston demographics. But think about that: 7 women and men have been found floating in these bayous randomly. So, like you said, they all appear to be African American. And they're, we didn't really get to see some of the other photos of the individuals, but the ones we have seen, they seem to be very well kept individuals. They're not transient. So that tells you, hey, JB, hey, Texas. So that tells you once again who, what, when, where, and how. Who? These individuals seem to be African American. What? What were they doing? We don't have that answer. When? The level of from this body to this body. How close in vicinity did that happen? When and how? So when you have those questions that you're asking, you have to go into your mind and say, okay, well, how are we collaborating these individuals in this investigative process? What are we looking for as far as how we're going to solve this crime?
Recovering the body of a male, and police reported there were no obvious signs of foul play. And as with all the others, the final word on how this person died rests with the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences. Mayor Whitmire was again quick to comment, stating, "We have 2,500 miles of bayous. Like I said, they're not related. It's been politicized by candidates and others, which is unfortunate, probably not paying proper respect to the families." Now, that could be a fair point. He went on to attribute many of these tragedies to personal decisions, the harsh realities faced by the city's homeless population, and said when it comes to these serial killer theories, enough is enough. Quote, "I do say enough is enough on speculation out of respect."
Okay, so those two women that we saw those pictures about, did they look homeless? Or were those pictures before they became homeless? That is a load of crap. I mean, the 63-year-old man, he could have been homeless, could have not been homeless. The other people, they didn't show their pictures, so we don't know. But as far as those pictures that we've seen, those individuals did not look homeless. They look high kept and very respectful, and they look professional. So how could the mayor even say that? How could he even say that? Let me read that for you. It says, "I do say enough is enough on speculation. Out of respect for the families and also the 2.3 million Houstonians in our region, we have challenges. We're meeting those challenges. But a serial killer loose in Houston is not one of those challenges." Okay.
For the families and all.
What do y'all think, chat? Those of you that just came in, do you believe that there's a serial killer in Houston? All these bodies are popping up, and there's no serial killer aspect out there. What do y'all think, chat? Tell me what you think. Yeah, one was a college student. You're right. You're right. Very right on point.
Also, the 2.3 million Houstonians in our region, we have challenges. We're meeting those challenges, but a serial killer loose in Houston is not one of our challenges. So to break all this down, I want to bring on former FBI and CIA agent and adjunct professor of criminal justice, Tracy Walder, also a News Nation contributor. Tracy, thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, before Tracy starts speaking, I want to ask you something. If there's not one serial killer, is there a group of people that are killing these people? Is it random acts? Is it a group? Because, it might not be a serial killer. It might not be the work of one person. But as you know, there's multitudes of other ways for people to band together to kill a person. And what's the best way to get rid of evidence? Tell me, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, in a body of water. What is the best way to decompose the body so that you don't have fingerprints, you don't have DNA evidence, because water at particular time, and the water can be murky and have all kinds of chemicals and stuff in it. It could deteriorate DNA. So what's the best way to get rid of evidence? Is water most of the time. Are all the wounds consistent? Well, that's one thing. They haven't given us any wounds. He hasn't reported that there were. I mean, he hasn't reported the method of death. He hasn't reported any of that at this point. So I don't know how they died. Supposedly, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking at this point that they drowned, but they're just leaving that up in the air. They're not saying.
It's great to see you. From your perspective, how would law enforcement initially determine whether you have a series of deaths, whether they are connected or whether they are completely random?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think obviously the first thing they're going to utilize is autopsies, right? What were the cause of death. Was it deemed to be a homicide, an accidental drowning, all of those things? And then if they are deemed to be homicides, are they similar in terms of, how they were killed? I think the other thing they're probably going to do is if they have any digital devices that are salvageable, obviously these bodies have been in water for some period of time, as well as any social media that they can get on. They might be looking in terms of whether or not any of these individuals, retraced similar steps, came from similar locations just prior to their deaths.
If you're talking, though, multiple bodies discovered in these different bayous over a short period of time, what would be the patterns you would be looking for? I mean, your perspective of this kind of case, are there any red flags that would suggest to you there might be a connection? Is there any red flags that would suggest to you there could be a serial killer? And I had talked earlier about, when we previously covered this, how serial killers there's a rarity about them right now. It's not so easy, particularly in today's day and age, given technology, for there to be a serial killer. But are there things that stand out to you about this that give you pause?
Listen, I think it's a lot of bodies. I hate to be so blunt, Jesse. I understand, Houston, there are bayous, right? This is very common. There are waterways in these areas. That part's not unusual. But in my opinion, the volume, right? The volume over, a 7-month period, or to me, is.
Thank you, Tracy, for saying that, because that is exactly along the lines that I was saying. The high point of these individuals falling like flies, I mean, that's not normal. That's not normal for a city, even if it is 2.3 million people in that city. It is not normal for there to be a death in that same manner almost every day. There's somebody being found in those bayous. So you also have to ask yourself, what was the correlation with all of a sudden there was no bodies being found in the bayous? Is there an alligator that is in those bayous that is killing these people? I mean, it might not even be a human being. It could be an animal. I know that's far fetched and it's hard to understand, but think about the animal region that we're talking about. I mean, the alligators are prevalent in the bayous, right? Yes or no? What are the statistics of the bodies being found in the water? That's a good question. That's a great question. Hey, Kels, how you doing? So, could there possibly be an alligator or a group of alligators that is getting these individuals? What do y'all think? Do you think that's probable? I mean, if we're not going to go along the lines of serial killer, could there be an animal that's doing this? Like, there are different animals in different demographics of the world, right? So, not every body that's found is obviously the product of a killer. You know what I'm saying? So, is it probable that an alligator could have been the culprit in this case? Yes or no? No, not too much. Okay. Well, I'm just, thinking outside the box, because if they're saying and they're holding true that it's not a serial killer, well, okay, let's look along some avenues that are different, okay? Because if you're not letting us go with the serial killer motive, there's somebody killing these people. Are they being dumped in the bayou, or are they dying at the shore? I mean, there's so many questions. There's so many questions I have, and they haven't answered one in this cast.
Piques my curiosity. I guess that is what would start to get, I don't mean to sound flippant or minimize the death, but one body or a few bodies, I understand these things happen, unfortunately. But when you have, in my opinion, 25 at one point, at 20 at some point, I think that's when we get into issues here in terms of really need to investigate these further and ensure that this isn't some kind of a targeted situation.
If it was, if you're dealing with one person or two people or a group that are committing multiple killings, would it be strange to you to leave digital evidence or footprints? An age where almost everybody has a social media footprint, a digital footprint, there's surveillance all over the place. Would it be strange to you to see some sort of, if someone were committing this, evidence behind?
So interestingly,
I mean, I like that thought, Texas. I really do. You said, I've never heard of any of the gators being in the bayous around Houston, not to say there's not any. Beaumont is a different story. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I'm just throwing these things out there because they're doubling down. The mayor has said it. The chief of police has said it. There's no serial killers. So if there's no serial killer, something's killing these people on a ratio of one per day. Like there for a week, it was five in a row, and then another one, and then another one. So you have to ask yourself, what is killing these people? And they're all ending up in the bayou. So that's what gets people intrigued whenever they get into the true crime realm. Is that's why they have those questions. Well, this doesn't make sense. And they're right. A lot of times it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So you have to ask yourself, okay, instead of making up more things that don't make sense, well, it's okay to say it doesn't make sense, but don't add to the mystery. Try to take away from the part that doesn't make sense, where it's not speculation, it's mere trying to find factual outcomes that could be more probable than impossible. You know what I mean? So 5 days in a row, and then another one. So you have seven bodies. And this was the last one that was found was on the 8th. And here we are on the 10th. So that's telling you that 2 days ago we were up to almost 8 bodies. Okay. So that's quite a few bodies dropping in these bayous. So you're telling me that it's not a serial killer, then what's killing these people? What is killing these people? And there are different demographics of people, different ages, men, women. We have no children as of yet that's been reported, but it's older to younger, men, women, different variations of employment. They just said they have a transient problem, of course, like most cities do. But think about that a little bit. None of these people were transients. Did the transient population kill these people? If so, then wouldn't you think that you'd build a task force to get these transient people away from these bayous so people can walk on these sidewalks or run or whatever they're doing without having to be attacked? Okay, here we go.
by putting the bodies in water, you are really destroying a lot of the evidence. And so part of me wonders if that is very convenient for them to be able to do, right? You don't have to necessarily clean, a crime scene or clean a body and make sure that you haven't left any kinds of forensic evidence behind. Also, throwing a phone in water is really going to make a phone very difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know if phones were on their bodies when they
Right,
were
right.
found. That I wouldn't know. But let's just say they were, everyone's attached to their phone in this day and age. It will make it very difficult and time consuming to try to obtain any kind of data from that. So in all honesty, putting a body in water is actually a great way to hide evidence.
Now, police, the city officials, they insist adamantly there's no evidence.
You know, something else that I've heard recently, or probably during the Idaho 4 case, and I mentioned it in one of my lives, and I've not heard a lot of people talk about this, but there's been murders where people have literally cleaned the body with bleach, like gotten a sponge or something, and cleaned the body after it was murdered with bleach in the sponge to try to get the DNA off, to try to get the fingerprints off, any kind of evidence. They've cleaned the body And I don't know if they do this when they're throwing the people into the water. It would make sense though, you know? So Firefly says she doesn't believe it's a serial killer. Yes, Danny Rowling did that. And I was wondering if Koberger did that with his victims. Um, I think the last one was found on the 8th, Texas. And so I think we're up to 8. But they're dropping like crazy.
Of a serial killer. When you hear that, in your experience, how often does social media, the speculation that you see on social media, and what the commentary online, does that conflict with the investigation, or does it help it? Because sometimes the public may know certain details that law enforcement doesn't, or they may be able to provide more information.
Thank you for putting that in caps. I thought I read that wrong. I don't have my glasses on. You said I do believe it's a serial killer. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sometimes you got to put these things in caps because I'm not wearing my eyeballs, so I should be, but after wearing your eyeballs all day, it's time to kind of take them off when you don't have to. Hey Allie, how you doing? Google says 23 bodies this year. So that's quite a few, isn't it not? That is quite a few bodies, right? Quite a few bodies. 23. Dang, I haven't heard anything about this. Them two immigrants through. Let me put this on the screen. It's hard to read over there. Through the little 12-year-old girl in Green Bayou. Yeah. Yes. She said, I'm good. Thank you. I agree with the glasses. I wear them at work all day. When I come home, I take them off. Yeah. Like right now, it's not blurry, but I'm like the I thought she said I don't believe it's a serial killer. I'm glad she put it in cap that she does. Another source says 16, so I'm not sure the actual number. Thank you for that. I mean, regardless, one is too many. One is too many. But to have it in a sequence where it's one per day, that screams out something that is abnormal. I mean, it really does. I don't know. It does to me. I'm gonna stick it to myself. I'm not gonna put it on you in the chat, but it does to me. It screams, "Hey, this is abnormal. There's something weird about this. They're all in the bayous. They're all being thrown in the water. What are you trying to dispose of? What are you trying to make go away? So it's an interesting case.
Or clues or look into things. But how much does it conflict with an investigation?
Sometimes it can conflict in terms of just if it isn't true, right? Just the sheer volume, right, of calls and leads that they would have to investigate. And then what that can do is actually stifle legitimate investigations that these departments are conducting, right? Because they have this sheer volume of accusations.
We have a question in the chat. I answered this a little earlier, but I'm going to answer it for the people that are just coming in. And let me put my eyeballs back on. God. Anyways, is this the same as the Ladybird lake bodies? I heard while I was doing the Ladybird lake series there for a while, there was speculation and rumor that there were ladies that were and men that were going from both cities, Houston and Austin, which if you look on the map, they're not that far apart. I think it's like a 2.5, maybe 3 hour drive at that. Where they were going from one city to the other, disguising themselves as Uber drivers, picking up drunk people, giving them water that was laced with some kind of roofies or whatever. The person would pass out, wake up, their wallets had been stolen, their cash had been stolen, credit cards, identification, and they didn't know where they were. So there has been bodies found in both places. You're right about that. You're right about that. Good question. Good question. Good question. So that's the correlation between both cities, but I don't know if this just started happening probably 3 weeks ago that I remember.
That if it's an open crime, they have to investigate. That's something they have to do. So that can hurt, obviously, investigators. But it sounds to me that if they are very quickly saying none of this is nefarious, they're not necessarily, in my opinion, then open to taking leads in investigations, which is also problematic on the flip side, right? To quickly call something not a homicide and then not be open to other investigations around it. That's problematic too.
Now, there have been some key updates that we want to talk about, particularly from the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office. And this adds new layers to this story because 3 new identities from that September cluster that we mentioned earlier, we want to identify them specifically here about what we're talking about. So the victim found in the White Oak Bayou on September 16th has now officially been identified as 24-year-old Joseph Hansen. The man recovered from Buffalo Bayou on September 18th is 63-year-old Arnulfo Alvarado. And the final Bayou death from September, the one from the 26th, has been identified as Michaela Miller. Now, here's a...
These are all different nationalities, all different ages. So, like I was saying to the chat before some of you came in, when you're doing an investigation, there's 5 things that have to be asked. Who, what, when, where, and how. There's never a why. Never a why. Everybody in the true crime community asks why. The method operandi is how a crime is committed based on the pattern that it has regarding multiple sequences of criminal activity regarding the same type of person, place, and thing. So, you have to really look at one of the most basic things that we have in this case is where they were all found in the bayou. So that is one thing that they have in common. Who were they? What were they doing around that area if they weren't brought to that area? Who, what, when did it happen? Where and how? How did it happen? See, that's a big one too. Did they drown? Were they suspected of drowning just like in the Lady Bird case? Or were they brought there and dumped in the bayou? These are some the answers that we don't have at this point. All we have are these questions. These are the questions that I'm asking. I don't know what questions you might have, but if you do, put them in the chat and I'll put them up on the screen to let other people know. Remember, the why question, we're never going to have that answer unless the killer lets us know why. That's a null and void. So to ask why in true crime is a null and void. You're not going to have that answer unless the killer gives you that reasoning, and then still you could believe it or not believe it. So who, what, when, where, and how. Okay? So if you have questions, put them in the chat and I will put them up on the screen. Here we go.
Crucial piece of new evidence. While the causes for Hansen, Alvarado, and Miller are still pending, the medical examiner has confirmed one cause of death, 33-year-old Anthony Azua, whose body was recovered back in March, died from drowning. Now, this is significant because it is one of the very few cases this year to get an official cause of death. For context.
Okay, so that one was the actual cause of death was drowning. And that's a great question right there, JB. Thank you for asking that. How deep is the water where they were found? Anybody know? But I have the question, what is the difference between a bayou and like a lake or a big pond area or whatever? I know what a river is, know what a lake is, but I have no damn clue what a bayou is. So if somebody can educate me, what makes a bayou different from these other bodies of water? Does it mean that there's trees, debris? I mean, what the hell is a bayou really? And I know that makes me sound ignorant, but I want you to answer that for me, not only me, but anybody else who's wondering the same thing. What differentiates a bayou from other parts of water? If you can answer that in the chat, that'd be awesome. So he said one of one of the people that were identified, one of the methods was drowning. So at least we got one person that drowned. But did he really drown? Did he really drown, or was he given something, he passed out, thrown in the water, and then drowned? And one thing that you have to ask yourself too is whenever somebody drowns, did they have water in their lungs when they did the autopsy? Because if you drown, you're going to have water in your lungs, right? If you drown and you don't have water in your lungs, that says that you were already dead before you hit the water. Is that not correct? Let me see what Firefly says. Hey, Walt. Firefly says, in usage in southern United States, a bayou is a body of water typically found in a flat, low-lying area. It may refer to an extremely slow-moving stream, river, marshy lake, wetland, or creek. Okay. Kind of like a creek. Okay. Well, I've heard of bayous, but I mean, I never knew what a bayou really was. You know what I mean? So if you're asking yourself, well, these bodies were found in bayous, kind of like JB said, how deep was the water? Was it deep enough that you could walk across from one way to the other, or is it deep in the middle where you start to, you know, are you drunk? Did you take a left when you should have taken a right? Next thing you know, you're in the water fighting for your life. You know what I mean? Like Bayou Gas. um, if they were all drowning, they'd probably have said, "Yeah, you're right." So they said only one person supposedly drowned. So let's see what else is said here.
The medical examiner has now confirmed at least 22 bodies found in the bayous through September, and with this week's discovery, that number is now 23. So for the vast majority, we still don't know how they died. Tracy, how does this change the context? How does this change?
23 through September. So how is this not a national news type thing? Tell me that. Tell me how this is not national news. 23 people are dying in these bayous, but nobody's saying nothing. I mean, I heard of this in passing, but nothing really, something that I've kept up with. So, and I've been really busy. So this is the first time I've had to do anything about it.
The analysis.
To me, it changes the analysis in that I don't think police should be so quick as to say that there's not a potential spree killer on the loose. I understand why police want to be careful, right? We don't want to create public panic. That's not our job. It's very irresponsible to do. But it's also irresponsible to say, there are no links between any of these and not investigate all of that thoroughly. Now, clearly, it's going to take time. I don't know how long these bodies had been.
So the younger bodies, and this is always something that I've asked myself, even with the Ladybird case, the Austin case of the drownings. I've also asked myself this: the younger victims, I mean, I could see where the older victims would have trouble, possibly, swimming, but the younger victims, their vitality and everything would be a lot more profound. So they wouldn't just drown unless they were intoxicated, drugged, or knocked in the head. You get what I'm saying? So it wouldn't be something that, okay, I'm walking by the bayou, just kind of, chilling. Next thing you know, I'm falling in and I can't get out. It is difficult though. If you're fully clothed, this is the thing. Okay, I'm going to share some personal information here. This is the thing. If you fall in some water and you're wearing jeans or something like that, that will weigh you down. Anything that you have, backpack, whatever, um, will weigh you down. But the fact of the matter is how were these individuals found? Were they fully clothed? Were they missing clothing? Did they have their shoes on? Were they missing their shoes? Remember how, when, where, when, where, how, who, and what. In 2024, a total of 24 bodies for the year. Now that is something that is substantial. Substantial.
Submerged in water to determine whether or not they die by drowning, other purposes, those kinds of things. But also, they have to wait for toxicology reports to come back as well. And that takes a long time, too. And so I'd be
Yeah.
interested to know, potentially in the one that's been determined as drowning, if there were drugs in their system, what got them into the water in the first place. All of that is going to help in this
Right.
investigation.
How common is it for a cluster of bodies to remain undetermined for months? What are the challenges when they're trying to determine if there is foul play here?
Again, length of body in water, right? Especially, and I don't mean to get into too many specifics, but it is Texas. It's very hot and it's very humid here. And
Yep.
that is going to decompose a body pretty quickly,
Right.
especially in water. And so it's going to make it very, very difficult, that just sheer passage of time and where they were found.
If the FBI joins an investigation like this, when you're dealing with multiple bodies, what resources, what tools can they bring to an investigation?
So my guess is, because obviously it's Houston, Harris County. I don't feel confident that they will be called in because it is a large county with lots of resources. But typically in an investigation, if they are called in, they have to be asked. This is not a federal investigation. They aren't particularly.
And she made a bold statement there that they have to be asked. They just don't step in. So any case that you hear of the FBI coming in, unless it's a federal crime, then you knew that the local authorities did ask the FBI to come in. So there's a lot of cases where they say the FBI just took over on their own. They didn't let the local law enforcement do what they needed to do. That's not true. A lot of times, unless it's a federal crime, the FBI does need to be asked. Here's a good question. Could it be a site where people go to unalive themselves? You can say suicide and you can say murder. It doesn't matter at this point. I'm not monetized, so it doesn't matter. Hey, that's a good thought. That's a good thought. Very, very insightful. It very well could be. It very well could be. I mean, it could be well-known place that you wanna check out. This is where you go. The fact that there's different levels of ages is substantial there. Because if it was just like in Ladybird, there seems to be like men between their 20s and 30s, a certain stature, certain look, clean cut, you know, this and that and the other, seem to be professional, this and that. So there's a demographic there at Ladybird. Here in this one, it's just very random from a lot of different ages. Could it be a psycho or a hologram? Or psyop, my bad. Psyop or a hologram. It very well could be. The killer could be a hologram if we're really looking into finally finding it. Maybe that's why they haven't found them, because the hologram happened, and then when they think they got them, the hologram leaves. And for those of you that are watching that are new, that is an inside joke. I'm not being legit when I say that. That's an inside joke. So Walt understands it. I definitely think that Ladybird, that's a serial killer. Too coincidental how they left where they were last and everything. You're right, because some of the individuals that are found in the Ladybird Lake off of Rainy Street area um, have contusions on the back of their head. My relative that I told you about, far removed relative, I mean, second, third cousin removed. Anyways, he was found with a gash in the back of his head. So, and he was found face up. How many people drown face up? You get what I'm saying? So you have to ask yourself, um, how did this happen? Is there coincidences? Of course there is. But when you get coincidences, um, when you get coincidences, it makes you think. I'm sorry, that was a text from Jeff H. Jeff H is a celebrity. He made it on what that channel? Um, Chaos Sector. They did a thing on Jeff today. So I guess everybody's seen that, and they're running that Chaos Sector um, upload or whatever. So if you get a chance later on, go check out the Chaos Sector. I'm not plugging that channel. I'm done plugging channels. You know, they can plug themselves. Nobody plugs me that I know of. So I'm not plugging that channel, but Jeff was mentioned in that channel, and it's quite interesting how they went on about him. You know, so here we go. Let's continue. That's a great example right there, Firefly. You're right. How many people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge per year? There's one individual that lived. You know,
There for investigative purposes, they are there for manpower purposes. So they are helping because they have that ability to go through evidence a lot more quickly than a local police department can, particularly digital evidence, also forensic evidence. They can expedite that a bit more quickly, but they're not handling things that a medical examiner would be handling.
Now, going back to something we mentioned before, while city officials insist there's no serial killer, there are residents who have taken to social media to conduct their own investigations and post warnings online. For example, you have TikTok user Darius Sticker said this.
So as you know, we have a serial killer on the loose. So, you know, that could possibly be my baby girl or my Kayla out there one day and get snatched up and get found in the bayou. That just really, like, bothers me, you know? And the police is clearly having a problem doing their job, right? Because I'm not understanding after the first body, why aren't there people staking out and watching? And then there were 5 bodies.
Another user, identified as Dre, promised payback on the supposed mass murderer.
To the Buffalo Bayou Killer, I'm gonna be in your hood. Feel me? I'm gonna take a small little slow walk through the nighttime. If you real, you won't bring a gun. If you're real, you just pull it with your hands.
Tracy, back to you. We talked about before about the role that the community can have, those on law enforcement. Public fear, public statements like this, how does it complicate the case?
We have to be really careful about especially statements when we're saying, retaliation against the person responsible for this. Because, even when we saw in the Idaho case, which I know you and I have talked about before, people are singled out who have nothing to do with any of this. And if you are talking about retaliation,
that is a big one. So if you run across the Bayou Killer, do not take actions into your own hands. Do protect yourself so you don't become one of the statistics. So if you are in the Houston area, be very vigilant. If you're in the Austin area, along Rainy Street, around 6th Street, be very vigilant. If you're out and about, bar hopping. Obviously, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area this weekend, Texas OU weekend, be very vigilant around your surroundings, because you should do that anyway, regardless of these true crime podcasts or whatever. You should do that anyway. You should always be mindful of your drinks. You should always be mindful of being in a crowd of people where you arrive together, you leave together. Sometimes these situations occur because you have an argument with your boyfriend, you have an argument with your friends or whatever. You start taking off to cool down. You might be a little intoxicated. Next thing you know, you're a statistic, which is sad. Where back in the day, you really didn't have to worry about this stuff. But now it seems like you're around the wrong place at the wrong time, you're going to become a statistics really quick.
Retaliation, which I'm assuming is violent, innocent people really could be heard. And that is where social media can be a great tool in terms of solving some of these investigations. But I do think it can be a pretty horrific tool as well. And I think that's exactly where we need to be careful.
Before we wrap things up, let me just ask you. I asked this about, I think, to my last guest as well. I'm going to ask you. Serial killers today, how common is it?
I think it's more common than we would think, simply because there are so many places that people can go on the internet and places like Discord, those kinds of things, to talk about these fantasies that they have, and it empowers them to act out those fantasies. These ideas are not occurring in a vacuum like they were maybe in the 80s and the 70s. They are occurring with people essentially egging them on in these digital spaces.
Here's the bottom line. Official investigation has not found a link between any of these deaths this year, at least hasn't been publicly made. But for a public watching, body after body after body being pulled from these areas, pulled from the water, the facts from the medical examiner, they can't come soon enough. We need answers. Tracy Walder, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great seeing you.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for.
I like that. I like that. Jesse did a good job with that. I wish he would have given us some more insight as far as how they perished. I'm going to go ahead and open up the TikTok app. That way we can look at some of the things that are out there trending right now. It's always interesting to see this. If you can hear the dog out in the yard, he never lets me have a live stream without barking. You know, I agree with you, Texas. I don't believe that Texas is going to do anything tomorrow but hand over the golden hat, unfortunately. So let's watch some TikTok together. I don't know how to do this full screen where you don't see everything, but we'll go regardless. Here we go.
I can't tell if it's a 3 or an 8 on the front of your plate because you have that placard around it and it's blocking it. Okay, so Arizona Revised Statute, the entire plate has to be readable and non-obscure. English. Okay, so yo necesito leer tu plato. ¿Es una 3 o 8? What else? Oh, the plate. 3? So, ¿por qué es este? Yo no leo bueno, okay? So, no boleto without warning, okay? ¿Tienes identification or pasaporte? Sí. Es pasaporte. ¿Tienes licencia en Arizona o en México? En México. Oh, ok, todo está bien. Es turista. Ok. ¿Licencia? Sí.
I don't care about him smuggling drugs. I do, but you know what I mean. Here we go. Let's watch these. Come on.
At least 22 bodies have been pulled from Houston's bayous this year, 16 of them inside city limits. Ages range from 20s to 60s, some with no obvious trauma, others still waiting for autopsy results. Officials say there's no serial killer, but social media is buzzing. 6 bodies appeared in just 2 weeks, and the city's waterways, normally so familiar, suddenly feel unpredictable and dangerous.
So 6 bodies in 2 weeks. 22 total. That's crazy.
White Oak Bayou claimed the latest victim on October 8th, and the rest of the cases linger in the unknown. Drownings, accidents, or something else entirely, the truth is still out there hidden beneath the water. Walking past a bayou now, you can't help but wonder, how many more stories are still submerged? At least 22 bodies have been pulled from.
At least 22 bodies have been found in the Houston, Texas bayous this year. 6 of them found in just an 11-day span. And that's not even including the latest body that was recovered just yesterday. Does Houston have a serial killer or a series of unfortunate events? Let's talk about it. As I just stated, 22 bodies have been found in the Houston, Texas bayous this year. Last year, there were 24 bodies recovered from the Houston, Texas bayous. So comparatively speaking, finding 22 bodies by October of this year is right in line with the numbers of previous years. What sparked the serial killer rumors, though, has little to do.
So that's a lot of damn people. I don't know about you, even though there are 2.3 million people down there. That's a lot of people dying in these bayous. You know what I mean? That's a lot of people. 22 people. Dying in a bayou? Come on.
We've just learned another body has been found in Houston's bayou. The call came in just about an hour or so ago. This is in the White Oak Drive area. This will kind of be more or less the Heights area here, in the area where 45 and I-10 interchange. Right here, you're looking live here from Sky Fox. We are learning this is actually the 16th body found in Houston's bayou so far this year. First responders say they are not able to get to it just yet. Again, 16 bodies so far this year. Obviously, city leaders, even Houston's mayor, have been speaking about this and have adamantly denied that there is some sort of a serial killer or.
Okay, let's take it to the chat. How many of you believe that there's a serial killer in Houston based on this story? Type in serial killer if you believe that there is an active serial killer in Houston, Texas. Type it in the chat. Let me hear you. Type it in the chat. If you believe that there's a serial killer in Houston, type in serial killer. Let the world know what you think, without doubt, as I play this.
Issue here in the city, blaming this on a multitude of factors, including homelessness and other issues. Of course, we'll keep watching this one for you, and when we get more details.
Reports that 4 bodies have been found in Houston's bayous within a week. It could be very, very scary. The first body found in a Houston area bayou this week was Monday morning when a man's body was recovered from Greens Bayou. Hours later, a woman's body was found in Brays Bayou. On Tuesday, a third body was recovered from White Oak Bayou, and 24 hours ago, a fourth body was found in Buffalo Bayou near downtown.
There's a serial killer in Houston. There's no way that 16 people has been unalived in the last couple months around the same area in the bayou. Make it make sense, y'all. They keep saying, oh, nah, it's not a serial killer. It's just people magically walking down to the bayou and just unaliving themselves, or they just passing away. So it's one of two things. If it's not a serial killer, then it must be some weird, wicked witchcraft going on that's making people go down and never come back up. What do y'all think it is?
Yeah, witchcraft.
Houston, Texas has a serial killer on the loose. Houston police confirmed they recovered the body of a man in White Oak Bayou Wednesday morning. That marks the 7th body.
They said they found 22 bodies in here last month. 22 bodies in the last month.
They just found a whole nother body in Houston, Texas, in the same exact place. And y'all telling me it's not no serial killer out there?
16 of the bodies were found in the bayou in the last 30 days. All right, so I have a few ideas about how these bodies are ending up in the bayou in Houston, Texas. Today is October the 8th, 2025, and today they found the 23rd body in the bayou.
I agree with you, Jeff. These places do not have enough security around them. And the fact that they don't, I mean, we might have not needed cameras back in the day, but it seems like our whole demographic needs to be flooded with cameras. I'm not a fan of cameras everywhere you go, but some places do need cameras and security. It seems like you hear of a murder, or you hear of somebody being abducted from a convenience store, and their cameras never freaking work. So there needs to be a backup somewhere to protect these people, you know?
Just before 10 a.m. today. All right, so this is what I think. I think that some higher ups, something kind of like Trump, are having these bodies, having these people unalived.
Oh, no.
Also want to make note that earlier we heard from Andy Kahn with
In less than 2 weeks, a body has been found in a Houston bayou.
Out here still looking for the bayou serial killer.
TikTok is crazy, man. One thing I wanted to say about this video, okay? If you remember, we're going to switch gears to Idaho now. we're going to switch gears. If you remember in this video, when Brian is shining the shoe a little bit, right? There's people that say, theories out there, not naming anybody or anything. People that say this man had balance issues. This man had issues with coordination, had issues with this stuff. Well, tell me how he's able to do this. Watch him walk.
Say they know who leaked the Brian Koberger footage of him in prison. Authorities now revealed that a corrections officer was the one responsible for the video footage being leaked. As you may recall, the Idaho Department of Corrections confirmed last month that the video footage was in fact authentic and that they were investigating into the leak of the video. They now say they have concluded that and have determined that a corrections officer was the one responsible. And as you may recall, they said this was a complete violation of Idaho Department Correction policy. They also stated that they would find the individual responsible and hold them accountable. They did not fully identify the suspect other than saying that it was a male IDOC worker. They said even though the action performed was strictly prohibited, it did not raise to the level of breaking state or federal law, and that the employee quit their job with the prison system before they could be fired. They said, quote, "He is now resigned and there is no criminal violation we can charge him with."
And the reason that there's no criminal violation, if you read that article, is because the individual resigned and there is no policy that video footage is contraband. That's the only thing that they were trying to get, because they would have had to find the cell phone on this individual in order to find him having contraband in the prison. Regardless, if he did have this video, he didn't have the cell phone. Nobody saw him with the cell phone. So, I mean, you can't just accuse somebody of doing something without proof. What do you always say? Presumed innocent until found guilty? Well, it works for everybody, not just certain people. So you can't be mad at this individual for not having any consequences, because if you're going for a presumption of innocence until found guilty, well, that's what this individual has. It's a presumption of innocence until found guilty, right? So that's one of the reasons um, there was no criminal charges filed yet on this individual.
This video does not fall under the definition of contraband. They followed up by saying, quote, "The individual responsible for the policy violation was identified and has since left the agency." The case was then referred to the Idaho State Police, which determined there was not enough evidence to pursue criminal charges.
There you
To stay up to
go.
date on this case, make sure you click the playlist.
Warning, guys, involving graphic violence and new.
I've seen a lot of people reposting this, and I know you probably already seen this, but Olivia was supposedly the one that posted this to social media. It says Maddie and Kaylee at the Corner Club. This is some footage that was taken on 11/13/2022, and it looks like 1/18/33. So this was actually taken before the corner video that we've all seen, where they were standing with Jack D. So if you haven't seen this, here you go. You can see behind them. I saw a big, watching it on your phone, it's actually bigger than it is on here. But as you can see that guy with the Dutch Brothers sweater, or the sweater known as the Charlie Brown sweater. You can see him behind Kaylee right there. And supposedly Jack Vito is around this area too somewhere, because remember he stated to the police or whoever when he did the interview that Maddie supposedly bumped into him, and he made some kind of reference like ew or something, that she was extremely drunk. But so he must have been around this area, because this crowd of people was the same crowd of people it looks like that were at the grub truck around Maddie and Kaylee. See, there's the video. There's the video I wanted you to see. Watch how this man walks. See, I am in the mindset where body lingo tells a lot more than somebody's mouth does. So if you watch this man walking, think about him actually walking through the backyard. Let me switch these logos so that you can see it. So you can actually see him walking. Watch how he walks. And you can picture him walking to the backyard through the snow by the stump. See how his feet are kind of turned out? I'm not saying he's pigeon-toed, but watch this. Does he look like an individual that has problems with stature to you? And once again, I'm not going over any kind of evidence or anything like that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of theories that were coming around that he was not strong enough or balanced enough to have committed these crimes. Watch this again. See him walking.
Discovered new evidence in the
From day one, just walking into that scene, there were more questions than answers. How did this happen? Who did it? Why did they do it? Why did the roommates not call? None of it seemed to make any sense. There's a lot of reasons why they may have waited or not, but it's just one of those complexities, a case that really, from the onset, had us scratching our heads.
There it is again, and this one's a little, it doesn't have any sound.
Does Moscow back to normal?
Not yet. I don't know if there is such a thing as going back to, as you put it, normal. We knew that we had one individual who committed this horrific crime, and that person will never leave the correctional institution unless he's in a box. To me, that.
You know, and that is something that I was talking to somebody the other day. I like this statement. You're on fire tonight, Firefly. Maybe that's why you have that in your name. He was a runner. I imagine he was plenty coordinated and had lots of stamina. I agree with that. I agree with that. They actually found out who leaked the videotape of Brian in the prison. It was one of the people that worked there and quit, and they said that they weren't gonna file charges. You're right. And what the opposite of pigeon-toed? I don't know. Type that in the chat while I play this.
That's justice. I'm hopeful now that we can establish some version of healing and move on, but we'll always remember it, and we will always have it with us.
Kaylee, you will never be forgotten. We will live right for you every day with your mentality in our mind. We love you so much.
She embodied her own sunshine, and that's when her skies became limitless.
Guys, I met Charlie D'Amelio, check!
Most important is love. Like it's the only thing you know how. Nothing even matters except love and human connection.
You know, I'm not a big drinker, but maybe I should have something. You're not a big drinker?
I was lucky enough to be able to explore life with Maddie. Maddie was the best at spreading love.
Xana was the funniest person I knew and made me laugh every time I spent time with her.
Honestly, it's just
Xana, you will not be forgotten. You have impacted so many lives and have given people so much love.
Ethan was always someone you could count on to make you smile and cheer up your mood. And I feel so lucky to have shared so many great memories with him.
Minions! Tonight we steal the moon!
two surviving roommates were awake and texting.
By mid-December 2022, quadruple murderer Brian Koberger was back in Pennsylvania, staying in his Poconos family home. Investigators back in Moscow, Idaho, were very close to positively identifying Koberger as the killer of Madison Mogen, Xana.
Let's dive into it. Okay, so a few other things that I want.
Koberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is
Let's look at Olivia's TikToks. Wow. Kaylee.
I can't imagine all the people that you know and the places that you go when the lights are turned.
You know, and the people that don't understand, and I'm not going to get on my high horse here, like I said I wasn't, but there's people that don't understand that this is a real person. This is a baby that grew up to be a young woman. And I mean, looking at these photos, you're just like, man, that's a real family right there. Because how many families have pictures like this of dad being asleep and little girl being right there on his chest? You know what I mean?
And I don't understand all
Look at
the
that,
things
man.
you've seen, but I'm slipping in between you and your big dreams. It's always you and my big dreams.
Wow. This says, how I imagine the Google searches after seeing that Costco surveillance. Hold on, where's the sound at?
Costco in Pennsylvania? Another woman told me no. How to file complaint with Costco. Why is my ass still fat? How to establish alibi. How do humans walk? Costco in Pennsylvania? Another woman told me no. How to file complaint with Costco. Why is my ass still fat?
Hi. So, update on the naughty list. In my comments, 2 creators were tagged pretty disproportionately to everyone else, I would say. Those creators are London's Notebook and Booking with B. I actually had private conversations with the both of them, and I don't really feel like I need to say what those private conversations were because they're private. But I will say they both reached out to me, and that means a lot. I think that that's a really, bold move to make. You definitely don't have to do that. And I think that it gains a lot of respect for me that, they would be willing to, take that first step to say, hey, I'm not trying to do this or whatever. I will say regarding London's Notebook, it was never about London, ever. I understand and was also concerned with, sorry, my baby's in the back. She's potty training. But I will say that I did have concerns about some of the things. I want to address them. I don't want to hide behind anything. So I will say dressing up as the defendant was something that I asked directly about, as well as this sweatshirt. Might start a naughty list here on TikTok, which is like creators that think that they're talking big shit, but they're really just adding to the conspiracies, but they're doing so with the front of being like unassumptuous. Don't worry, baby, I see you.
So, real shit,
How do you guys do this without, like, crumbling internally? Because I've never felt more embarrassed in my life. Also, how do I take this filter off? I didn't select a filter, but this is definitely not what my...
So that's Olivia's page. If you have TikTok, go add her. Let's see, who else can we go look at? There's not much new going on this case. This video always trips me out. Like, people had so much to say about this video.
Okay, so I got this screenshot from a post on TikTok. It was in the comments, and it looks like Ethan. This is at the Linda Lane footage at like 1 something, and there's 3 people walking, you can see, and one goes really fast in the beginning, and you can't see their face, but someone took a screenshot, and that looks like Ethan. Does anyone know if it is Ethan or...
Chilling detail.
New photos from inside the...
You think I'm tacky, baby? Stop talking dirty to...
Right into the highlighter, it looks like there's some blood on the ground. And then...
Yeah.
I got
See, he said it looks like there's some blood on the ground. That's the one that I saw that one night. And I was thinking to myself, man, I've never seen this. Never seen this. I don't know if y'all have seen this body cam all the way through, but it's pretty interesting.
smudge marks right there on the window. And I got 2 palm prints on the outside of that window.
Okay.
And then those footsteps.
At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where everybody was. Starting at the 3rd floor, we can see where Maddie and Kaylee were sleeping.
This is our good friend Sonia D. So she reposted this, I think. I want to see this illustration. Let's watch it.
Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the 2nd floor, we can see Dylan's room directly under Maddie's room. Continuing across the living room onto the other side of the home, we see Xana's room. She's sitting in bed scrolling on her phone while Ethan sleeps next to her. Minutes ago, she had just finished ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits. The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the 1st floor, directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Kohberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. As we continue, Kohberger drives past the home and notices that all the lights on the 2nd floor are still on. He drives on and loops around the apartment complex building.
So why was he driving around the apartment building, folks? You in the chat, give me... I know I've asked this question a million times. People are going to tell me that's not Kohberger's car. I get that. Why was this vehicle driving around Queen Road Apartments? Tell me, chat. Yeah, originally we were told that the knife sheath was found under Ethan, so that could understand that.
Because of the home security timestamp, we're able to know how long it took to drive this path. On his first pass, it took him 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is him leaving on the first pass. Now let's look at his next 2 passes and record the times. This is pass 2 of him entering and leaving. And now this is pass 3 of him entering and leaving. When we do the math, we can see how long he took each pass. The last 2 passes were normal without any stopping, but on his first pass, he took an additional 42 seconds to creep by the house or even stop for a time to stare into the windows with the lights on. All this information has been coming from camera A, but there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building, and we're going to call that camera B located here. This camera allows us to see how long it took to get from point A to point B, and between the 3 security cameras' data, it took between 35 and 37 seconds. What this means is you didn't stop.
Wow, they broke it all down per minute, per second. So if that doesn't tell you how the things add up, I don't know what does. I really don't. It is a great animation. I was like impressed with this because it shows everything to real time.
Or park somewhere or go into a different direction. He simply drove straight from point A to point B at regular speed. These times help us understand the DoorDash delivery window. According to court documents, 2 times are noted. One is 3:59 a.m. and the other is 4 a.m. Bringing back our passage chart, we can see that the DoorDash time of 3:59 happens after Koberger has left the neighborhood and before he returns for his last pass at 4:04. It is possible that the DoorDash driver saw Koberger as he was parking his car, because a timestamp of 3:59 could be reflected when he took the photo of the food at the front door instead of the time he arrived. So it is possible he witnessed Koberger staring at the windows as he drove by.
I've always thought that too. Always have thought that. From the very beginning, I thought there's no way in hell that DoorDash driver did not see Brian in any capacity. I always thought that possibly that they crossed paths, somehow, some way. I don't have a clue to that answer, Texas. Hey, Randy Fur, how you doing? Did y'all think that at the beginning of this case? I mean, I know that we've talked about this relentlessly, but did y'all ever think that too? That when you heard the first thing coming out about a DoorDash driver and supposedly that there was camera footage of a white Elantra, did any of you in the chat ever believe that these 2 individuals crossed paths? I believe that from the very beginning that they did cross paths. I just didn't know how. I couldn't put it in my head how they crossed paths. I thought the DoorDash driver had pulled along the street right there, and that would have made sense that Brian passed that DoorDash driver. What do y'all think? Did y'all think that at the very beginning, or did you not really give it much thought? Because I remember in the beginning they were saying that there was accusations also, and I'm not rehashing the case for anybody. Okay, I'm just merely just bringing out old information here. Yeah, I thought for sure the dash cam got him. Yeah, I thought that too, but I never thought that a DoorDash driver would have potentially saw him as she was exiting the vehicle looking for the residence. Yeah, remember they were saying that possibly the DoorDash driver was also involved with the murders. They were also saying that I believe this is some of my beliefs. I believe that the DoorDash driver could have even have been the killer at the very beginning. I don't know what y'all thought about that, but I thought that at the very beginning, I thought, the DoorDash driver could have possibly been the killer. What better front to have than a DoorDash driver pull up into the residence, drop off the food, go in, kill these people, and then dip out? You know what I mean? So it's always interesting to go back in time and see what people actually thought rather than, the speculation stuff. Sure does appear the BK goes up the Walenta Hill very slow a few times as if he's trying to keep an eye on the DoorDasher. That makes sense. In the beginning, I thought maybe the DoorDash driver had passed them as he was coming in and she was going out. That's very true. I mean, this is all very beginning. So there was a lot of people. There were a lot of people that had different theories. We all had different thoughts. We all had different thoughts. Yes, I thought it was the ex. That was interesting as well. Because what do we know as far as killings? We know that they look at the people closest to the individuals first. So here we go. See there?
Continuing, as the driver leaves, Xena turns off all the lights, sits on her bed, and scrolls on her phone as she eats her food. A few minutes later, Koberger enters the neighborhood for the last time. But this time, as he drives by the home, he sees all the lights are off. At the camera B location, he turns around to head back to the residence as shown in this video.
This is an awesome illustration for reals. I wish it was bigger. Like,
When he returns to the front of the house, he does something unusual, so much so that it's noted in the arrest affidavit. On page 6, it states, when the suspect vehicle 1 is in front of Kings Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or
There you
turn around
go.
in the road. It goes on to say that he continued onto the intersection where he did a 3-point turn.
how come people never remember that part right there? How come people never remember that part? He unsuccessfully tried to park. He backed up, went and made a 3-point turn, then made the final pass. That part always intrigued me because Jeff and I used to spend so much time debating that in the middle of the night. We debated that nonstop. Did he hit a trash can? Did he go by a trash can? What was it? You know what I mean? Because the car was a pearl green. That's exactly why. It was a what do you call it? What was kryptonite colored car, so therefore the car wasn't able to park successfully.
This 3-point turn was captured on camera A, which has a timestamp of 4:06. He appears to be calm and not overly anxious with his driving. As he heads back in the direction of the residence, he takes one last look at the windows to make sure all the lights are off. As he begins to drive around the end of the apartment complex, camera B records the time of 4:07. Fast forwarding a little bit, Koberger drives to the back parking lot away from other residences. He takes a few minutes looking around and sees that nobody's out and that all is quiet. He eventually grabs his things, gets out of the vehicle, and begins walking to the back of the home. At approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry. As he steps in, he takes a minute to make sure everything is quiet and that nobody is truly up. He walks to the entrance of the living room and looks around. He continues to be cautious and stands there listening. Feeling confident, he continues upstairs. As he makes his way to Maddie's room, the time is about 4:14. Meanwhile, 2 minutes later, Xana takes a break from TikTok and walks into the kitchen. Evidence shows her activity on the app stopped at 4:16. As she enters the kitchen, she's a little shocked to see the sliding glass door wide open. And at the same time, she hears a serious commotion going on upstairs. A source revealed that Santa's phone recorded steps and elevation change, which is how it's known she went to the kitchen and the 3rd floor. When she walked up to Maddie's doorway, she interrupted Koberger, who had just finished an intense battle with Kaylee, who fought back violently. After a second or two, he notices her, and then she turns away. Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure. Out of fear, she quickly leaves. A single source, unaffiliated with the media, claims Koberger injured Xana on the 3rd floor hallway, leaving evidence of blood there. But this single source of information has not been validated by any more sources. Continuing, Koberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is precisely 4:17:30. We know this because of camera A captured the sound of screaming and the thud. After attacking Xana, Kohberger focuses his attention on Ethan and attacks him while he slept. Afterwards, Kohberger must have sat down in a chair according to a report, which found blood smears on Xana's chair, perhaps from the exhaustion of what he had just done. This source also says that blood from the 2 roommates upstairs were found in Xana's room, showing that it was one person moving from one room to another. Kohberger sitting down was for less than 30 seconds. As he gets up to leave, Dylan, hearing the commotion from Xana's room, gets up out of bed and goes to her door to look out into the hallway. She freezes and sees Kohberger as he walks by and exits through the kitchen. She immediately closes and locks her door and retreats to her bed. Within 20 seconds of the encounter, she's calling and texting her roommates, but no one is responding. It takes Kohberger a minute and a half to get to his vehicle after the encounter with Dylan. But once in his car, he flees the scene at a high rate of speed and exits the neighborhood at 4:20. Dylan continues trying to reach someone in the house. And after 3 minutes of trying, Bethany wakes up and responds to the calls. They converse for 3 minutes, and then Beth convinces Dylan to come downstairs. The time is now 4:26 a.m. Cautiously, Dylan walks into the hallway and through the living room. As she approaches the staircase, she can see into Xana's room and sees her laying on the floor. She then runs quickly downstairs to Beth's room, where they lock the door and for several hours continuously try contacting the other roommates. Back to when Kohberger left the neighborhood, he drove a particular route that would exit onto a road that leads straight to Washington state line. And about that same time that Dylan runs to Beth's room, Kohberger is entering Washington state. This is all part of Kohberger's pre-planning, including finding a place to stop and get rid of any evidence. This place here fits that planning. This area here, pointed out by the arrow, is a little group of trees with a small area that you can park a car on. This is what it looks like from the road.
You know what's interesting about that little piece right there is I wonder if people have really went to that area and looked around. I wonder if they really scoured that area. No, this is on TikTok. Sonia reposted this. Sonia D. She is a creator on YouTube. But this is the most descriptive version of the crime that I've ever seen, and it's interesting none the least. You know that it walked you right through that. Oh, she has it on YouTube. Well, I'll probably play the YouTube one. Let me see if I can find the YouTube one because we can see that again. Because I wasn't anticipating that kind of thoroughness. Sonia, if you're listening, I'm going to be using your stuff. Let me see if it's on here. Wonder which one it is. Do you know what the name of it is? PKC? What do y'all think about what that video just said though? That was very thorough. Like down to the timeline and everything else. Let's finish this up.
At 4:30 in the morning, while changing clothes and getting cleaned up at this location, one could feel completely safe while being able to see the headlights of a car coming from miles away. As this pivots around, you can see how this is out in the middle of nowhere, and a pre-dug hole near some of these trees would hide forever any evidence that Kohberger was trying to get rid of. It's important to remember that Kohberger was studying criminal behavior and the legal system. This would have motivated him to plan things to the smallest of details, like plastic on the seats to conceal DNA, or crossing state lines because the jurisdiction of one area would take hours to get assistance from the other. He's also smart enough to know that this 10-minute stop would likely never be on the radar of the authorities. At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where.
So, do y'all have any questions on that? I mean, think about that a little bit. Thanks. Because I can't,
Hi guys, since Brian Koberger pled guilty today, I feel like we release this full illustration of the
okay, let me get to that page. It is as Jet Industries. Let me pull that page up so we could see it in wide range. Let's shift gears here. Let's go back to YouTube. Wow. See how things happen? I've always been more curious about that. Hold on a second. Y'all gotta hold on a second with me here. I think I misspelled the word. That's Jet. There it is. Okay, I found it. Damn, I didn't realize I was that big up there. My bad. Sorry about that, y'all. Yeah, everything's alleged, but this isn't alleged. The dude pled guilty, so this is probably more likely than what happened. Let's watch this because, I mean, it was small on the freaking. On the TikTok one. Y'all ready to watch this? Are y'all ready? I can't hear y'all. Damn, I'm waking the dog. Are y'all ready? Okay, here we go.
In this illustration, we're going to start at 3:30 a.m. At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where everybody was. Starting at the 3rd floor, we can see where Maddie and Kaylee were sleeping. Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the 2nd floor, we can see Dylan's room directly under Maddie's room. Continuing across the living room onto the other side of the home.
And see, that's something that's easy to get turned around. This is Dylan. This is Maddie's room. There for the longest time while I was walking through this house, I got confused. I always thought Kaylee's room was right above Dylan's. I don't know why, but it's easy to do. And there's the good vibe sign. Boy, they went really, like you said, they're attentive to detail. This is pretty amazing.
We see Xana's room.
See, the bed is not in the proper direction, but we know otherwise which side the bed was and everything.
She's sitting in bed scrolling on her phone while Ethan sleeps next to her. Minutes ago, she had just finished ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits. The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the 1st floor, directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Koberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. As we continue, Koberger drives past the home and notices that all the lights on the 2nd floor are still on. He drives on and loops around the apartment complex building. Because of the home security timestamp, we're able to know how long it took to drive this path. On his first pass, it took him 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is him leaving on the first pass.
2 minutes and 38 seconds the first pass around the house. See, that's still quite a bit of time. Let's continue on.
Now let's look at his next 2 passes and record the times. This is pass 2 of him entering and leaving. And now this is past 3 of him entering and leaving. When we do the math, we can see how long he took each pass. The last 2.
So pass 2 was 1 minute and 52 seconds, so he was going a little faster. Pass 3, 1 minute and 59 seconds. So as you can see, the first pass was very slow due to obviously probably trying to look at the lighting and everything else around there. And the next one's sped up quite exponentially. And Jeff also did this with his time passes on the Linda Lane camera.
Passes were normal without any stopping. But on his first pass, he took an additional 42 seconds to creep by the house or even stop for a time to stare into the windows with the lights on. All this information has been coming from camera A. But there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building, and we're going to call that camera B, located here. This camera allows us to see how long it took to get from point A to point B, and between the 3 security cameras' data, it took between 35 and 37 seconds. What this means is you didn't stop or park somewhere or go into a different direction. He simply drove straight from point A to point B at regular speed. These times help us understand the DoorDash delivery window. According to court documents, 2 times are noted. One is 3:59 a.m. and the other is 4 a.m. Bringing back our passage chart, we can see that the DoorDash time of 3:59 happens after Kohberger has left the neighborhood and before he returns for his last pass at 4:04. It is possible that the DoorDash driver saw Kohberger as he was parking his car, because a timestamp of 3:59 could be reflected when he took the photo of the food at the front door instead of the time he arrived. So it is possible he witnessed Kohberger staring at the windows as he drove by. Continuing, as the driver leaves, Xena turns off all the lights, sits on her bed, and scrolls on her phone as she eats her food. A few minutes later, Kohberger enters the neighborhood for the last time. But this time, as he drives by the home, he sees all the lights are off. At the camera B location, he turns around to head back to the residence as shown in this video. When he returns to the front of the house, he does something unusual, so much so that it's noted in the arrest affidavit. On page 6, it states, "When the suspect vehicle 1 is in front of the Kings Road residence, it appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road." It goes on to say that he continued onto the intersection where he did a 3-point turn. The 3-point turn was captured on camera A, which has a timestamp of 4:06. He appears to be calm and not overly anxious with his driving.
I don't know about you guys, but listening to her narrate this is making it more suspenseful. I mean, the way she's narrating this and the way it's going on camera, I'm like, damn, this is like watching the crime happen in real time. You know what I mean? It's like all the stuff that we've been told, the PCA, the videos, all this stuff. It's actually like giving it a play by play, and it's very intriguing. If it's, I agree it's pretty accurate. Some areas might be a little off, but she says she has sources. So who are we to disagree, right?
As he heads back in the direction of the residence, he takes one last look at the windows to make sure all the lights are off. As he begins to drive around the end of the apartment complex, camera B records the time of 4:07. Fast forwarding a little bit, Kohberger drives to the back parking lot away from other residences.
This part right here.
He takes a few minutes looking around and sees that nobody's out and that all is quiet. He eventually grabs his things, gets out of the vehicle, and begins walking to the back of the home.
Oh, I didn't know that, PKC.
At approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry.
So if he did enter at 413, this crime was fast, meaning that all the speculation and everything that we've wondered about, there was too much time, it didn't take that long to do this crime and all this and everything else. In essence, it took 3 minutes. And I know I've had guests on here that have prior experience with knives and everything else. Um, it happened quickly and precisely.
As he steps in, he takes a minute to make sure everything is quiet and that nobody is truly up. He walks to the entrance of the living room and looks around. He continues to be cautious and stands there listening. Feeling confident, he continues upstairs.
I mean, it does make sense
As he
that
makes
he
his way
would
to
do
Maddie's
this.
room, the time is about 4:14. Meanwhile, 2 minutes later, Xana takes a break from TikTok and walks into the kitchen. Evidence shows her activity on the app stopped at 4:16. As she enters the kitchen, she's a little shocked to see the sliding glass door wide open. And at the same time, she hears a serious commotion going on upstairs. Hey everyone, I don't usually ask, but I'm building a small production company to bring you more exciting stories, and I'd love your support. If
Please
you'd like to help out
subscribe.
and get some cool perks, or on the 3D model file I created for this
Give it a
animation,
thumbs up.
please send me a
Subscribe.
DM and then drop a hashtag #ASGET in the comments, so I know to look for your messages. Your support truly means the world to me. Thank you. Picking up where we left off, a source revealed that Santa's phone recorded steps and elevation change, which is how it's known she went to the kitchen and the 3rd floor. When she walked up to Maddie's doorway, she interrupted Koberger, who had just finished an intense battle with Kaylee, who fought back violently. After a second or two, he notices her, and then she turns away. Being dark, Xana didn't realize what she was seeing other than a shadowy figure. Out of fear, she quickly leaves. A single source, unaffiliated with the media, claims Koberger injured Xana on the 3rd floor hallway, leaving evidence of blood there. But this single source of information has not been validated by any more sources. Continuing, Koberger, without thinking, pursues her all the way to her room, not realizing he had dropped the sheath of his knife. When he gets to the room, he attacks Xana, and the time is precisely 4:17:30. We know this because of camera A captured the sound of screaming and the thud. After attacking Xana, Koberger focuses his attention on Ethan and attacks him while he slept. Afterwards, Koberger must have sat down in a chair according to a report, which found blood smears on Xana's chair, perhaps from the exhaustion of what he had just done. This source also says that blood from the 2 roommates upstairs were found in Xana's room, showing that it was one person moving from one room to another. Koberger sitting down with...
So if that's true, that is the end all. If there was blood from the other room found in Xana's room, that means there was only one killer. One killer. If that is true. If that is true, then that debunks all the other, there was 2 killers, there was a team of killers, all this stuff that we've heard. I mean, if that is true, wow, that is some stuff right
for
there.
less than 30 seconds. As he gets up to leave, Dylan, hearing the commotion from Xana's room, gets up out of bed and goes to her door to look out into the hallway. She freezes and sees Koberger as he walks by and exits through the kitchen. She immediately closes and locks her door and retreats to her bed. Within 20 seconds of the encounter, she's calling and texting her roommates, but no one is responding. It takes Koberger a minute and a half to get to his vehicle after the encounter with Dylan. But once in his car, he flees the scene at a high rate of speed.
Okay, let me ask you guys in chat because you are very invested right now. A minute and a half to get to his car and do what he was doing. What do you believe that minute and a half consisted of? Tell me your thoughts in the chat. That minute and a half, that's quite a bit of time. What do you believe he was doing? What about this being a psyops? It was the killer that she's representing in this animation. That's the real killer. pisses me off that BT won't even say the order they think it happened. You're right. I mean, and I saw your comment, Firefly. You said I think he entered closer to 10 after. So a minute and a half. And that, if the last pass was at 4:07, a minute and a half would have been like, you know, 4:08, close to 4:09 ish, and some change. So, I mean, if it took him the exact amount of time, I've always thought that walking through all that brush back there is going to take a little bit of time because you're trying not to fall. You're trying not to trip on anything. I mean, if you have any bad sighting or if his gait was a little bit off, there's two fences that run along that line. And I saw another video where it showed the representation. I think it was at Warner's body cam where he was back there, and it shows you exactly how those fences run along that back tree line back there. So if you're walking back there, it's going to take you a little bit of time because you might fall down, fall into a tree, shrub, whatever. And I've said that, more often than not. Getting out of his clothes, yeah. Here we go.
And exits the neighborhood at 4:20. Dylan continues trying to reach someone in the house. And after 3 minutes of trying, Bethany wakes up in response to the calls. They converse for 3 minutes, and then Beth convinces Dylan to come downstairs. The time is now 4:26 a.m. Cautiously, Dylan walks into the hallway and through the living room. As she approaches the staircase, she can see into Xana's room and sees her laying on the floor. She then runs quickly downstairs to Beth's room, where they lock the door and for several hours continuously try contacting the other roommates. Back to when Koberger left the neighborhood, he drove a particular route that would exit onto a road that leads straight to Washington state line. And about that same time that Dylan runs to Beth's room, Koberger is entering Washington state. This is all part of Koberger's pre-planning, including finding a place to stop and get rid of any evidence. This place here fits that planning. This area here, pointed out by the arrow, is a little group of trees with a small area that you can park a car on. This is what it looks like from the road. At 4:30 in the morning, while changing clothes and getting cleaned up at this location, one could feel completely safe while being able to see the headlights of a car coming from miles away. As this pivots around, you can see how this is out in the middle of nowhere, and a pre-dug hole near some of these trees would hide forever any evidence that Koberger was trying to get rid of. It's important to remember that Koberger was studying criminal behavior and the legal system. This would have motivated him to plan things to the smallest of details, like plastic on the seats to conceal DNA, or crossing state lines because the jurisdiction of one area would take hours to get assistance from the other. He's also smart enough to know that this 10-minute stop would likely never be on the radar of the authorities, especially after he crosses back into Idaho and then turns his phone back on. Let's pick back up where we left off at his 10-minute stop. He continues on with his plan, knowing that he's completely cleaned up and that there's no evidence to tie him to any of the crime if he were pulled over at this point. After getting on Highway 95 and turning south, he turns his phone back on at 4:48 a.m. This section of Koberger's travels comes from his cell phone data extraction. Let's orientate ourselves onto this map and get a better understanding of the timing. Koberger leaves Kings Road residence at 4:21 a.m. Just 8 minutes later, he arrives at his stopping point where he gets rid of all the evidence. After the cleanup, he then drives back into Idaho and turns his phone back on, which occurs near a town named Blaine.
Yeah, it is.
This was referenced in the arrest affidavit along with the next town called Uniontown. The last place to reference is where he's seen on cameras near his apartment at 5:25 a.m. Using Google tools, we can get accurate timing information. This entire route took 54 minutes. If we add the 10 minutes stopping time to that, it would be an hour and 4 minutes. Now, if you add that hour and 4 minutes to the time he left King Road, it would equal 5:25 a.m., the same time the camera captures him on the cameras near Washington State University. The last thing to compare is this part of the route, which has a reported time of 38 minutes to drive without any stopping. Bringing back the time record and adding in the second leg information of 38 minutes, we can now add that time to when he turned his phone back on, which was at 4:48 a.m. After adding the 38 minutes to that time, it gives us 5:26 a.m., nearly the same time that was captured on the campus cameras.
And there you have it. That is amazing. I'm glad that we stumbled upon that. Man, he tripped on a branch, grabbed his bushy eyebrows. Wow. Wow. That just kind of breaks it all down, doesn't it? It really does. I mean, for no other reason than that is the most probable scenario of everything. If you take out all the fluff, all the BS, all the suspicion, all the other areas that were not even part of the crime scene, you take all that out, that's what's left behind. She did a better job than Gray Hughes, actually. I mean, Gray did a pretty good job. I'm not gonna diss Gray, but hers was professionally done for sure. Um, yeah, y'all hit the like button, subscribe, and share. And I've changed the QR code up there, so in the future, if you're watching this on replay or if you want to donate to the American Heart Association, please feel free. Not obligated to do so. Anything you got can and will help a future recipient in their quest for potential new avenues of life with anything that they're dealing with, heart related, heart disease, anything, battling strokes, things like that. So I believe it was Jeff. I think that PKC said that. She said that she's the lady that made the animation for Dateline, and that's pretty damn awesome, I thought. So if you feel later on that you want to donate, there's two QR codes. There's one for me and there's one for the American Heart Association. Like I said, regarding myself, you don't have to donate. Don't feel obligated. It is a Cash App one. I just put it up there because people have asked me to, since I'm not monetized. And I doubt that I will go back to being monetized because I'm enjoying the hell out of the freedom. Even if I get copyrighted, it's not a strike because I'm not monetized. So, whatever that's worth. So, that's hilarious. It's amazing how another creator wouldn't take my call only because I had an unlisted number. What were you calling about? So let me know what you think about the live stream tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is a long one. It has a lot of information on a couple cases, and I just felt like getting on here and talking a little bit. Like I said, it's a 3-day weekend for me, so just been chilling and hanging out. For anybody who's new to the channel, feel comfortable to come into the chat and chat with us. As you can tell, there's not any drama in this chat whatsoever. You don't necessarily have to agree in order to be in the chat, but at least come in and say hello. And let us know that you are here. And let me know what you think about the new intro. I'm thinking about keeping it as the main one. So I'm going to close out with that intro. It's the intro, but I'm going to close out with the outro with it so that you guys are able to do that, to see exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm rambling here. Maestro, cue that music. You guys have an awesome weekend. Be safe. If you're off on Monday, give yourself some self-care. Be safe as always and watch your six. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
On location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
In plain sight. But 12 gauge brings it to light.
fades to black. Cold wind through the courthouse, the evidence stacked. Mysterious whispers, facts twist in the rain. Trials and tears, fingerprints and pain. Forget, the truth on the line. Unsolved heart, and the edge of time. Through the light, we illuminate the signs. Justice speaks when the silence binds. Headlights flash on the long forgotten road. Photographs of faces, stories left untold. DNA and alibis, the gavel falls again. Every clue a heartbeat, every word a sin. Facts and fiction dance in disguise, but we're chasing the proof where the cold truth lies. From the old case files to the breaking news, we follow every lead till the trail bleeds through. 12 gauge, Ace still on the grind. Mystery meets the mastermind.
Come on in, let's get ready to do this. My name is 12 Gauge.